Hello, and welcome to the Passion on Purpose Leaders on Center Stage podcast. I am Steph, and I'm the owner and creative director at VIM. VIM's mission is to showcase the enthusiasm and passion of business leaders nationwide. I cannot wait to have you listen to the show, and stick around. At the end, we talk a little bit about how you can be my next guest. All right, we are back with another episode of the Passion on Purpose Leaders on Center Stage podcast. And today, not only do I have a phenomenal leader with me, I have a growth coach. Excuse me, if I could talk over my words. I have a growth and professional coach who specifically works with ambitious mamas. I absolutely love how targeted your audience is. I have a lot of ambitious mamas in my sphere. So I know that there's going to be a lot of listeners excited to listen today. And I love when I get to interview another podcast host. You are the host of Motherload. What a cool name for a podcast.
Thank you. I can't wait to tell more of like the origin story of it too. Cause I think an ambitious mama is going to be like, yep, I get it.
Yes. No, we might have to try to dive into that. Might have to secret squirrel that into this conversation. But I'm going to start as we always start. And I'm going to start with the hard-hitting question. Are you ready?
Yes.
What is your why?
Man, it's evolved. I think for a long time in my adult life, my why was like to be big, to be known, to make money, to like chase the next big thing. And I wanted to help people in the process, but it was very much me focused and looking at like how much influence can I have by showing people that I can get this dream done. And then I became a mother, and I now have 2 little boys, and my why now is very much how do I, one, not repeat the patterns of my parents that, it's a long story, but there's a lot of things I want to do differently. And a lot of that is to be really present, like physically present, and also mentally, emotionally, spiritually present, even if I'm not physically there, and also I want the ability to feel like I don't constantly feel like I'm failing at everything, and I don't, the immense mental load that I'm under as a mother, that I have choice and that I have support, and that if I want to stay home with my sick kid, everybody that is on my podcast roster for the day will understand if I have to reschedule, and that when I started kind of going down this path around my podcast and pivoting my business more to focus on ambitious mamas, I realized there's really not a lot of that out there. There's mothers who are coaches or mothers who are leaders or influencers. And then there's a lot of like masculine energy in the growth and performance coaching space and the business coaching space. And I'd been in a lot of those containers and always felt like they don't really get me. Like it's cool that they're teaching me the strategy, but like I can't execute like that when I have a newborn or a 2-year-old, or I have a 3-year and a 5-year-old right now. Like I can't run my days like that. So now my why is really focused on I'm not going to give you a bunch of business strategy because most of my people already have that. It's really creating rituals and practices and doing some inner work and looking at how do I have better boundaries so that I can execute more choice? How do I communicate more clearly with my clients and my staff and my family and all the relationships I have in my life so that I feel protected and safe and needing to say I can't be there today because of my kids or whatever it is. And then, how do I be a better parent and really pour into children in the way that I want to parent, which is for a lot of my people is very differently than they were parented. So it's a little bit of all of that, really embodying motherhood. And to me, the why is like, let's redefine motherhood and ambitious motherhood as something it's not, I can do it all, but it's also like having it all is not possible. You don't have to live at either of those spectrums. And I'm trying to make that more popular, more well understood, more talked about, something that makes people feel less alone, really.
Well, I love that. So the word ambitious, right?
Yeah.
We are anyone who, whether you're a mom or not, if you use the word ambitious, you also are going to likely associate this go, there's no slow, it's quick. and it shouldn't have to be. I'm not saying they do truly equate each other, but I think they naturally go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And as women, and as we just used the term earlier with each other, the elder millennials, in this new world of everything being so instant, fast paced, we already are ambitious. We already are putting that on ourselves. And
Yeah.
then you add on a whole other layer of being a mother. And then if your ambitions are to also be an entrepreneur or anything else, I mean, the amount of stacking that we do on top of each other, it's just never ending.
Yeah.
And I love that you target so specifically that type of woman.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's because I am her and you are her,
Mhm.
and I started, I spent years. I've been coaching since 2014, specifically business coaching, and I've worked with lots of different people, and not always just women. But over the last few years, I noticed more and more of my one-on-one clients were high achieving women who had some success in their businesses or their careers. It wasn't like this game to get to seven figures or have $100,000 a month. Like, they'd already been there. They've
Yeah.
already felt all that. They know how to do that. Then they have young kids and they're like, well, F, like I can't maintain the same pace I was going at
Yeah.
and show up the way I want to as a mother. Or I had some kind of trauma in my physical body with birth and now I'm healing and there's a whole new level of my body just won't sustain that level of output. There were so many stories coming to me, and a lot of what I ended up helping with was, hey, like, you hired me to be your business coach, but like your business isn't going to grow any more than your inner work reflects in you. So I can't out strategy a lack of inner work. So let's focus on you. Let's figure out what's going on inside of you and heal, as a mother, and start looking at some of these pressures we put on ourselves and the lack of boundaries that we have and how we're taking on, like, martyring ourselves by taking everything on. And lo and behold, like, every client I had where I started to work with them on those things, the business just took care of itself, because they were less depleted. They were more present. They were more excited to go to work and not feeling so guilty about leaving the kids. And they were having these incredible results and incredible, like, I'm manifesting this. Like, you didn't manifest this. You just did the inner work, like, you got
Yeah.
yourself back on track. And that really woke me up to, like, man, ambition is such a big part of a lot of our identities, and we don't want to give that up when we become mothers, but also we're not taught how to do both.
Yes.
So rather than continue to just teach people that they need more strategy and you can out strategy all this stuff, it's like, no, your strategy, you're already successful. Let's look at you and let's get you figured out, and make what you're feeling normal and validate you, and let's reprioritize and restructure your life. And that was just the biggest insight for me. So I get a lot of questions on ambition, and I hesitate to use that word sometimes in the discourse of social media because I think still there is a little stigma around ambitious women.
Mm-hmm. Like
But
the hustle culture, right? There's it's
yeah,
almost, you almost get canceled if you use the word hustle.
yeah. And there is a lot of that, that's a whole other conversation about stuff on social media, but I think there is this movement around, like, mothers shouldn't be ambitious because your children should be your first priority. And I'm the first to say, like, yeah, I love my kids unendingly and I would die for them just like every other mother. And I'm still going to put myself at the top of the priority list
Mm-hmm.
most like, because if I'm not good, nothing else in the system works, including my relationship with my kids. And I learned that from my own mother, um and so part of my identity for me is my ambition. And so figuring out what my relationship is with my ambition is number one. Because if I don't have a good relationship with my ambition and I'm constantly feeling like a failure or I'm feeling pulled to go do something that's making me feel guilty, that is taking me out of presence with my children and it's taking me out of the desire to nurture and love them. So I will, like, die on the stake of ambition is beautiful. And if it's a part of your identity and you identify as ambitious, it's something we need to nurture and heal and pour into,
Yeah.
not try to take out of you.
I want to ask, and I don't know the answer to this, and I don't know if it's how you speak to women in this polarity or not, but I keep thinking about there's pros and cons to being ambitious. Do
Yeah.
you work with women to recognize and identify that, or how would one even recognize if they are ambitious?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had to have that specific like reconciliation with anybody because I've so far worked with people who are like, I'm so ambitious, I'm almost having to like help them with boundaries and stuff. But I think recognizing it is this pull towards meaning. And that's the deeper thing that I talk about a lot is I call it ambition, but what the ambition is trying to fulfill in me is I want to find my meaning in life. And I will also die on the stake of like my children are not my meaning in life. Like
Mhm.
I brought them into the world and I absolutely adore them and they are little parts of me living outside of me and that is the most beautiful and painful thing ever. And if I define my purpose of my lifetime and the only thing that I'm here to do is be their mom, I think I'm leaving something on the table, like there's still something in me that has a bigger purpose beyond just being a mother, beyond being a parent, just having children. And I still want to offer that to the world. And I still want to feel the meaning and the purpose of my life fulfilled. And to me, that's what ambition is the expression of, is like that we have this drive to go create something in the world. It doesn't mean you're an entrepreneur
Yeah.
necessarily.
Yeah.
I think ambition has been associated with entrepreneurship or like hustle or bigness, and I'm like, I know lots of ambitious women who are nurses or doctor. My best friend is a cardiothoracic surgeon. She's fucking ambitious. Like
Yeah.
she went to school for 19 years, and she cuts people open and operates on their hearts and lungs. Like
Tiny
she
little spots.
yeah,
I think that's
like
so fascinating.
she's so ambitious to even become a cardiothoracic surgeon, much less like be employed as one she was chief resident. Like, like you look at someone like that and I'm like, she's more ambitious than me in a lot of ways because her commitment to a skill and to the rigor of residency and the rigor of fellowship and all these things, you have to be ambitious. And the reason that you would feel that desire so strongly is rooted in what you want to give to the world.
Mhm.
And so I honestly haven't come across anybody that doesn't identify as ambitious at some level, but
Yeah.
um but I do like to demystify it doesn't necessarily mean that you're just an entrepreneur.
Yeah. I love
Because
that.
I think it does show up for us all in all different forms.
Well, think about the moms we know who isn't an entrepreneur, right? Who isn't a typical 9 to 5 business woman, a career woman in some way. Think about the moms who are the PTA president, who bring brownies for every birthday, who have a chore chart, I mean, that's ambition right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have to associate it with, I totally agree with you. It does not just mean that you are an entrepreneur or a badass cardiothoracic surgeon,
Yeah.
if I could say it
Yeah.
correctly. Um,
Totally.
I love that. I mean, it is, I was saying this the other day, and I hope I didn't repeat it. I hope I'm not repeating another episode, but I had this beautiful lesson that I was taught very early on. I was a camp counselor. I worked with sixth, seventh, eighth, and like sixth to eighth graders. And I did it 20 camps. So I had my little system down. I would bring my little queen bees. I would bring this little gift basket and it would have little goodies in there. One year I'd given them like a stationery kit. One of my girls came and she was bawling, absolutely bawling. I had no idea what was going on. And I thought something must be wrong. She broke her ankle or something. And she showed me her pencil that I had given her and it was broken into 2 pieces. And I was like, "Oh, it's okay. I'll give you another pencil. Like it's not a big deal. It's fine." And what I learned in that moment was her world was wrapped into the meaning behind this little gift when she was separated from home, separated from family, separated from her teddy bears that she's used to or whatever. Her whole world was wrapped into this little thing. And while I can diminish the value in what that meant to her because my world's so much different or bigger, to her it was everything. And I
Yeah.
relate that back to ambition because we can be ambitious as a mom or we can be ambitious as a how come I can't say that?
Yeah.
Cardiovascular surgeon. And it doesn't change. That is everything we fixate on and everything we yearn for and goal for and strive for. So
Yeah.
I think it's amazing that you help women recognize that power.
Yeah. Thank you. And I mean, it's such a important, I think it's such an important time in our culture, world, whatever dimension we live in here, that to nurture it too in mothers, because I really do feel like we are at a pivot point as humanity where, we're technology and politics and population levels, and to the point where whatever happens in the next generation or two is really going to determine the extent that the human race exists anymore, and
Yeah.
to me, I'm like, mothers are integral in that whole system. I mean, you don't have humanity without mothers. You don't have new generations without mothers. And if mothers feel depleted and they feel alone and they feel misunderstood and they feel like they have to choose between having children and fulfilling the meaning of their life, like, why would you choose motherhood? And I
Mhm.
see that and I hear that. I have these like 21-year-old nannies that nanny for us part-time, and they're two like sorority sisters. And they say it already. They're like, gosh, maybe I'll be a mom like in my 40s because I don't think I'll be able to afford it. And I don't know if I like you don't seem like you sleep very much, and they love my kids, but they see how hard it is. I mean,
Yeah.
they watch my kids, and I'm like, man, if you're 2021 already, and you're already thinking you can't afford kids, or you don't want to sacrifice your career for kids until you're in your 30s or 40, like late 30s, early 40s, like, by the time 20 years in our culture goes by from now, and they are that age, are they still like, what will they choose motherhood, and so there's this inkling in me that right now is the time to really help change the perspective on and the paradigm of what it looks like to be able to be ambitious as a woman and not give that up and still become a mother. Um, so it's big work, but it's very, as you can tell, I'm very passionate about it.
Absolutely. Well, and I think trying to help women, mothers in particular, associate their purpose beyond a mother. It is every single mother challenges is challenged with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
You're never not a mother,
Right.
once you become one, no matter what, the guilt, the constant worry, the all of the things, the concern, it never goes away. Um, but there's this physical presence of them going away.
Yeah.
And so at what stage do you what's the ideal stage to work with moms? Like, is it when their kids are little so that they're not fighting upstream to do the backwards work, or is it any time? Like, what do you think?
Um, I found my personal sweet spot in my own experience of transformation around this stuff has been in the last 2 years, and 2020 was such like a reckoning for all of us that now I would
Yeah.
probably say any age, because 2020 just rocked motherhood. But um, one thing is having two or more children is such a game changer when you look at mental load and what's required of a mother to maintain everybody's schedules and everybody's logistics and everyone's milestones, all the buckets of the mental load, and her own ambition and her own, well-being. So for me, most of my clients are already like have more than one child, but are still in those like early years where it's not, you don't have teenagers necessarily. It's not that I wouldn't or couldn't work with somebody like that. Um, it's more that where a lot of this stuff really becomes super present of mind is like a year or two into motherhood, and now you've got a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, and all of a sudden you're like, I thought it would be getting easier by now. Like, I'm through the newborn stage, I'm through the diaper stage, I'm through the baby stage. The kid can walk and talk and wipe his own butt. Why do I still feel like I don't have control over my schedule? Why do I still feel like when I'm working, I want to be with my kids, and when I'm with my kids, I want to be working? Like, I thought this stuff would get easier. And that's really, if you're feeling that, like whatever age that's happening for you, that's the sweet spot. But for me, and who I've worked with up till now, it's usually people who are two or more kids, and they've got kids that are in that like, 2 to 6, like early childhood. Um, or at least one of their children is still that age. And maybe they have older kids, but honestly, like the more the feedback I get on the podcast, and I get DMs from people who have grown kids and who are like, oh my God, this is my entire life. Like, this is how I
Yeah.
felt my entire life, was like, it was choosing between wanting to work and pursue my ambition or being a good mom. And I got shit on both ends, you know, like if I chose kids, I got in trouble at work. And if I chose work, I got shamed by the PTA moms or whatever it might be. And so I think this has been a question for the last couple generations. And really, I think probably more for the Gen X and millennials, because there's much more of the woman, the empowerment of the woman to be in the workplace, right? Like I think maybe the boomer generation and back wasn't so, I guess maybe the boomer generation too, but you know, where women weren't as empowered to go have their own identity and their own career.
Right.
So it's really like, since that has been a thing that I feel like this has exploded in our culture where, hey, like the feminism movement in the 70s and like women should have their own businesses. They should have all the same rights. They can get bank accounts, like all those things that happened in the 70s. And then the 80s and 90s, you got this like the professional woman, you know, the power suits and Princess Diana and like all these things of like, go be big, go be loud, go get what you want. But that also came at the cost of like, oh, but don't be a crappy mom and make sure you still do every
Right.
single thing at home. And like,
It was
don't,
always, you could be this too.
yes. Yes.
Still have to do this. We're not taking that. You still got that, but we're allowing you to also be this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But giving no real resources or no idea on how do I now juggle that.
Yeah. And all kinds of, there's so many nuances to it that I won't go into, but like took away the village, took away community, you know, like then the internet started and we started to get more digital and less analog. We had less of the in-person connection. We moved away from religion and, you know, there's less people involved in organized religion where a lot of that like community aspect of the village came in. We moved away from our family systems because so many people felt more empowered to like get out of the small town, what, you know, quote unquote, or whatever. And so over the last 20 years or so, I think, or 30 years, like you have a lot more women who are lacking the village, but they still have all the ambition, you know? And
Yeah.
so it's like, okay, yeah, now you just get to do both. And it's very, you know, you don't have a whole lot of resources or support or even awareness of what would help you. And
Yeah.
so that's what you know, I'm like, I not only am I going to kind of wake you up to the help that you need and help you build a plan for how to get it, but we're also going to look a little deeper at why is it so hard to ask for help to begin with, you know, and what's that inner work stuff going on in you that comes from a legacy or a generational, you know, thing around not asking for help or help makes you weak, or you're going to get shamed if you aren't able to do it all, or, you know, all that. So there's a lot of layers to it.
Well, and so I know that, you know, we spoke and we've done a phenomenal job of making sure that every woman knows that you can be ambitious, and every mother knows you can be ambitious with or without the quote unquote career, right? And I do not think that a mother who is a stay-at-home mom does not have a career, because I truly think that's harder work than I do all day.
Yeah.
But we did a great job at that. But I also know you are a growth and performance coach.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that tie your coaching? How does that tie to mothers who, like a listener listening, if maybe they aren't a career woman, they are stay at home? Is working with you something that would be powerful, or are you really working with more career mamas?
Yeah, I mean, I would say my most common client is a professional of some kind, whether they own their own business or they work inside in leadership in something in another business.
They're kind of juggling both.
Yeah. And
Okay.
there's a demand on their schedule that takes them out of full-time home. I mean, that's not to say you can't be working from home. I work from home, but I shut my door in my office and I
Right.
close
And
the
I'm
little,
not
you know,
here,
like,
right?
yeah. And I have full-time childcare, and like there's a system set up to support me working. That's very different than a stay-at-home mom who may be working through nap time or working at night, or,
Right.
you know, using a little bit of like stealing some time here and there to do something, like the side hustler. And I have worked with some side hustlers who are working to grow the side hustle to free them a little bit from the stay-at-home mom role, not because there's anything wrong with being a stay-at-home mom, but because the cost of childcare is so prohibitive in a lot of places that if you have 3 or 4 or 5 kids, you can't, like, literally the amount of money you would have to make to pay for childcare in those early years is a six-figure business, you know?
Right.
And so, which isn't what everybody wants, you know, from a work standpoint. So yes, it's not to say that if you don't work outside of the home or have like a professional job or business that I couldn't help you, and or that you don't suffer from these same feelings. But most of who I work with are people who have that demand on their time, where they have clients or a team or, you know, some structure that also has needs from them. um, and yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I wanted to just make sure that so in kind of like, I guess in a nutshell, like what is the clearest, most concise kind of like thing that you serve through your ambitious mama's work? And then what's a really good way for listeners to dive in and start working with you or consuming like content that you share and kind of learning from you rather?
Yeah. So I would say who I work with is a ambition speaks to you. Like that word means something to you. You feel that in your bones. And that could be the expression of ambition for you might be through a business that you own. It might be through a career that you have that has high demand, some kind of leadership role, or like my friend who's a surgeon. I've worked with nurses, I've worked with, you know, C-level executives, I've worked with management. Um, and and of course your mother, so you're managing the mental load of that. um but primarily like growth and performance coaching, I moved away from business coaching for this reason, which is anybody can do inner work, and growth and performance coaching to me is very much focused on looking at what's holding you back, what's
Mm,
making it feel hard. And this is from my own growth, you know, and my own evaluation of what's holding myself back is a lot of us don't need more strategy. We don't need career coaching. We don't need business coaching. We don't need side hustle coaching. We need somebody to hold us accountable to go look within.
mhm,
And especially as a mother, where a lot of that inner work, a lot of the habits and the patterns and the shadows and all these things we talk about in inner work, a lot of that stuff you can be pretty asleep to until you're a mother. And then you wake up and you're like, holy crap, wow, I just said something that is what my mom used to say to me that I hated. Or all of a sudden you're just presented with these mirrors looking at you and reflecting back to you all the things about yourself that you might not love. And it's such an invitation to say, okay, in order to be who I want to be in my ambition or in my devotion to motherhood, I need to go within and look at this stuff. So that's really what I focus on. It doesn't ultimately matter what the expression of your ambition is if you're willing to do the work with me, the inner work. So that's that's what I would say for that. And then, you know, to the stepping off point is the podcast. Right now, that's my primary focus, and it's kind of informing programs and events and stuff that will be coming in coming months. But yeah, there's so many great conversations on the pod about these concepts, and I don't only interview women or mothers. Like I interview people who are not mothers. I interview men, to be able to get more perspective on what the mental load of the mother really looks like from all different views, and how it plays out in different patterns and different facets of life. So definitely
and
invite you to listen.
yeah, no, I already have listened. I've already
Yeah.
listened to one of your episodes. I love that you highlight one of the books I'm currently reading, Atomic Habits. I absolutely love the flow of your podcast. I think it doesn't feel scripted at all. It feels very free flow form. So I'm inviting anyone who's listening who likes that style, definitely check out Motherload. I love that name. Will love it.
Thank you.
And so you work with women mothers virtually, or do you also do in person or?
I do in person. If you want like a VIP day, I own a beautiful log home cabin in the mountains of Colorado that you're welcome to come hang out with me. I love doing
Love that.
intensives up there. Intensives have changed my life. I love that way of working with people. Like I can do it anywhere from one day to a couple days where a few days where we deep dive in. Yeah, a lot of like traditional virtual one-on-one coaching models. And those are pretty custom to what you need. And then there's some group programs coming, and I'm hoping to get events going again in 2023. I think we're far enough through the the stuff of the last couple of years that made events a little scary
Yeah.
as a host to just know if you were going to get canceled or not. So I feel like by 2023 we can run an event and not have anybody be too concerned. So watch
Yeah.
for those. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I will make sure in the show notes that we have all the links needed to get to you, and I make sure that people can dive in more into motherload and all the great things you're doing for ambitious mamas. So I thank you so much for coming on the show with me today.
Thank you for having me. I love talking about this stuff.
Oh, I can tell. And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. I say all the time, if you're going to geek out about whatever it is we're talking about, that means you care. That means you're passionate. So,
Yeah. Amen.
all right. Well, until next time. Steph here. Thank you so much for listening to the Passion on Purpose Leaders on Center Stage podcast. If you are a successful business owner and you lead your business with passion, we'd love to feature you on our show. We'd love to share with the world what makes your business great and how you have intentionally led passion throughout your business. Also, if you got any value or little tidbits from this episode, please take a minute to screenshot the episode and share it on your favorite social media platform. Be sure to tag us so we can properly thank you, and we love deepening our connection with our listeners. We are regularly putting out new episodes to feature leaders such as yourself who lead with passion on purpose. So be sure to subscribe to our show so you don't miss any future episodes. For more episodes, guest information, or details on the show, please visit getvim.com/passion on purpose. That's getvim.com/passion on purpose. Once again, I'm Steph. I am the owner and creative director at Vim, and thank you for listening to the show.